Hello, ma'am. First of all, good morning to one and all. This is Kenishan, and my roll number is 21951A04C4, and I am from EC B section. Today's my topic is topic from problem and programming solving using C from different between pseudocode and source code. First, we know about pseudocode. What is meant by pseudocode? Pseudocode, pronounced as su, DOH do, and KOHD code, is a detailed yet readable description of what a computer program or algorithm must do, expressed in a formally styled natural language rather than in a programming language. Pseudocode is sometimes used as a detailed step in the process of developing a program. Because pseudocode is detailed yet readable, it can be inspected by the team of designers and programmers as a way to ensure that actual programming is likely to match design specifications. Catching errors at the pseudocode stage is less costly, and then catching them later in the development process. Once the pseudocode is accepted, it is rewritten using the vocabulary and syntax of a programming language. Pseudocode is sometimes used to conjunction with computer-aided software, engineering-based methodologies. It is possible to write programs that will convert a given pseudocode language into a given programming language. What is source code? Source code is generally understood to mean programming statements that are created by programmers with the text editor or visual programming tool and then saved in a file. Object code generally refers to the output of compiled file which is produced when the source code is compiled with a C compiler. Example of a source code. Source code is a language or string of words, numbers, letters, and symbols that can computer programming uses. And the example of source code is some using HTML code to create a screen. The numbers, strings, words, and letters and symbols are also used in source code language. How to write a pseudocode? Always capitalize the initial word, often one of the main 6 constructs. Make only one statement per line. Indent to show hierarchy improvement, readability, and show nested constructs. Always end multi-line sections using any of the end keywords. End if, end while, etc. Why pseudocode is reused? Pseudocode helps to plan out your app before you write it. It helps to create algorithms in a format that is easier to read that code syntax. Once programming languages come into the picture, it can be harder to understand what your code is doing. Is pseudocode an algorithm? An algorithm is defined as well-defined sequence of steps that provide solutions for a given problem. The algorithm can write is step by step, which can be understood to write a program and easy to understand the program, whereas pseudocode is one of the method that can be used to represent an algorithm. Why pseudocode is called false code? Pseudocode is fake, not the real thing. It looks like imitates real code, but it's not a real code. It uses English statements to describe what a program is to accomplish. It is fake because no compiler exists that will translate the pseudocode to any machine language. Why source code is important? The source code is the essence of a software. This pattern defines the programming language and therefore needs consistency in its development. Otherwise, it will mean usability problems and put sensitive user data at risks. What are the different types of source code? Compiled source code, interpreted source code, computer or operating system source code, software program source code, software future source code. How to write a source code? To write a source code, all you need really is a simple text editor like the Notepad on Windows or TextEdit on Mac. This way, the source code can be saved as plain text. Example, in ASCII code or with UTF-8 encoding with the correct file name ending for the programming language. So if you find a file with the ending, what is difference between source code and pseudocode? Source code is the actual code that can be compiled into an app and then be executed by a machine. Pseudocode is just the algorithm of the program. It is how the code would look like when it is actually programmed. Source code is written in programming language and is ready to compile. Pseudocode is written in a simple English and cannot be compiled using compiler. Pseudocode is an non-language specific description of what a code should do. It allows the reader to understand what code they should implement without tying it down to an implementation on one language. It's good for explanation. It might be right. It might be that it discusses in everyday language and algorithm, but it is not itself an algorithm. For example, pseudocode: if x is greater than y, then add 1 to y. Source code is the implementation of code. An implementation of the above pseudocode might be: if x is greater than y plus plus. Pseudocode isn't generally written into any IDE. Just so you know, I write pseudocode on paper to make sure I understand English what I want my code. Or source code, they meant the same thing to do. It's useful because as code becomes complex, it is harder to keep in your mind what are you trying to achieve. It can be used like plain. It keeps objectives clear. This is important as the time wastage occurs on confusion can occur as the mind tries during coding sessions that do not go smoothly. It also means you can share your algorithm with others so they can understand, or perhaps you can wish to have an algorithm readily available if you need to implement a similar solution to a different problem at later date. Regardless of programming language, you need to implement the algorithm in An algorithm is defined as well-defined sequence of steps that provide solution for a given problem, whereas a pseudocode is one of the best method can be useful to represent. Pseudocode is a non-language specific description of what should do. It allows the reader to understand what code they implement without trying it down to an implementation in one language. It's good for explanation. It might be that it discusses in everyday language an algorithm, but it is not itself an algorithm. For example, pseudocode: if x is greater than y then y add 1 to y. Source code is implementation of a code. Implementation of a code is about pseudocode isn't generally written into an IDE. Just so you know, I write pseudocode on paper to make sure I understand in English what I want my code. So, code then mean that thing to do. It's useful because as code becomes complex, achieve it can use like a plan. It keeps objectives clear. This is important as time wastage occurs and confusion can occur as the mind tries during the coding sessions that do not go smoothly. It also means you can share your algorithm to others so that can understand, or perhaps you wish to have an algorithm readily available if you need to implement a similar solution to different problem at later date. Regardless of the programming language you need to implement the algorithm in. Thank you, man, for giving this wonderful opportunity.